On the day of my wedding to the man I love, I couldn't express how long I'd been waiting for this moment. But storms can hit without warning. I'm sorry, I'm pregnant with his child, my sister confessed. Surrounded by well-wishers, I was ready to pledge eternal love, but my own sister hit me with the cruelest revelation. Even Dad, whom I thought would support me, defended her. Why did this happen? What had I ever done? As I was drowning in despair, things took a turn I could have never anticipated. My name is Riley, 26 years old, and I work at a foreign company as an ordinary employee. My life had been pretty mundane until now. 2 years ago, I met my destiny, Thomas, 28 years old. We met at a client's company and are currently engaged. Thomas made the first move, and after a year and a half, he recently proposed. Thomas isn't just great at his job, he's also well respected. I was so proud to have Thomas as my fiancé. Today, I brought Thomas home for a family meeting. I hadn't been home for a few months, and Mom and Lily greeted us warmly. Riley, it's been a while. To think you'd come to announce your wedding, Mom said, quite surprised. Sorry about that. Work has been hectic. It's okay. Alexander is waiting inside. Thanks. Oh, where's Mary? She's here, in her room? Honestly, I didn't want to see Mary. The truth is, I've never really liked her. Mary is my older sister, and even at 30, she doesn't work. Mary has always been beautiful and treated others very well. Because of this, people always said she was adorable and such a good girl. As a result, she grew into an uncontrollable troublemaker. But the frustrating thing is Mary's true nature only comes out around me. In front of our parents and relatives, she plays the role of a perfect little angel. My feelings towards Mary started to sour before I even entered elementary school. Even before that, as a child, I had my grievances with her. One incident that stands out is my 5th birthday. On that day, my parents gave me the rabbit plushie I had wanted for so long. But right after, Mary burst into tears out of the blue. I wanted that plushie too. But Mary, didn't you say you didn't like bunnies? I do like them. You copied me, Riley. It's so unfair. No, that's not true. I've always loved bunnies. Liar. Riley, do you hate Mary that much? Mary sobbed uncontrollably, making the atmosphere tense. What made things even more complicated was that Dad, Alexander, doted on Mary excessively. Whenever Mary and I had a falling out, Dad always sided with her. Of course, this time was no different. Dad firstly took the rabbit plushie I was holding and handed it to Mary. Dad, that's the one I just got. Listen, Riley, you're the younger sister. Mary comes first, so give it to her. But I've wanted that bunny for so long. We can get you another one for your birthday next year. Just bear with it this year. Fine. Mary, hiding behind Dad, smirked at me maliciously. I can't forget the look on her face from that moment. It was as if her eyes were telling me, that's what you get. A few days later, I found the plushie that Mary had taken dirty and discarded in the trash. Crying, I went to Dad, but he dismissed me, saying, "You're the younger sister. Deal with it." From then on, I gave up expecting anything from my family. After that, Mary frequently tormented me, and whenever we argued, I was always painted as the bad guy. Mom would step in to defend me, but Dad continued to shower Mary with affection regardless. Because of Dad's incessant spoiling, Mary never held down a job and still lived a carefree life at our parents' house. She would take on part-time jobs briefly, only to quit soon after, and whenever she needed money, she'd beg Dad. Each time, without reprimanding her, he'd give her an allowance. Mom grew tired of Dad's behavior and stopped intervening. Because of our past, I despised Mary and didn't want to see her. The mere thought of her causing another scene filled me with dread. Despite my anxiety, I headed to the living room with Thomas, but only Dad was sitting on the couch. Mom prepared some coffee, and the conversation shifted from casual chit-chat to talk of the wedding. As we discussed the wedding date, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Oh no, I prefer she not meet Thomas, but my fear quickly became a reality. Mary, wearing a revealing outfit, entered the living room. Feigning sweetness, she addressed me. "Oh my, Riley, long time no see." "Mary, we're discussing something important. Can you come back later?" "What's going on? Am I being excluded from some secret conversation?" "It's just about the wedding." "The wedding? So the guy over there is your fiancé?" Mary approached Thomas, saying sweetly, "I'm Riley's sister," with a warm smile. Thomas seemed somewhat charmed by her. Biting back my urge to shout, I stood up and left the living room to suppress my anger. I headed to the bathroom. Why does it always have to be like this? Mary's always in my way, and Thomas better not be falling for her. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself before returning to the living room. I found Mary and Thomas deep in conversation, laughing together. Witnessing that scene, the anger I'd been suppressing surged instantly. I gathered my things and called out to Thomas. Thomas, we're done here. Let's go home. Huh? Are we leaving already? What about the wedding plans? I'll contact Mom about it later. Can we just leave now? All right, Alexander, Lily, Mary, it was nice seeing you all. As we tried to exit the living room, Mary ran up to Thomas. Come back soon, she said, flashing a big smile. It irritated me. I had told Thomas about Mary before, yet seeing him so taken with her made me feel anger again. On our way home, I approached the topic with Thomas, trying to dispel my anger and anxiety. Thomas, you remember what I told you about Mary, right? Yeah, I do, but based on her chat today, she seems nice. That's the thing, she's like that with everyone but me. Please don't be so easily fooled. Hey, I'm not easily swayed. The one I love is you, Riley. I wouldn't fall for any temptations. I trust you. Yet, recalling Thomas's expression around Mary earlier, I still felt unease. I think we should avoid visiting my family home as much as possible after we're married. After that, we didn't discuss Mary and simply enjoyed our time together. Our wedding preparations were well underway, and I was too busy to dwell on anything else. Then the big day arrived. My wedding dress, which I had tried on many times and finally chosen, was perfect. My makeup was slightly bolder than usual, and I wore a subtle tiara. The once-in-a-lifetime event, the day I'd long dreamed of, came faster than I thought. Thomas looked tense, of course. I felt the same nerves, but more than that, I was overwhelmed with joy that we were finally becoming husband and wife. After the ceremony, as a whirlwind of emotions engulfed me, we transitioned to the reception venue. Once the groom finished his speech and the meal began, suddenly Mary, seated at the family table, broke down crying loudly. Everyone's attention was on her. When Dad asked what was wrong, Mary dropped a bombshell. I have something to apologize to Riley for. Apologize? What are you talking about, Mary? I asked. Riley, I'm so sorry. I'm pregnant with Thomas's child. What? I couldn't process this unexpected revelation. Mary's words echoed in my mind. Pregnant with Thomas's child. I cautiously looked over at Thomas, seated next to me. His face was pale, and he was sweating, looking down. In that moment, it hit me. What Mary was saying was true. Suddenly, my vision blurred, and I couldn't control my body. Then everything went black. I don't know how much time had passed when I came to lying on a sofa in the venue's waiting room. There was a slight headache. Then Mom approached, handing me a bottle of water. Riley, thank goodness you're awake. Mom, what happened? That must have been tough to suddenly face such a situation. Yeah, I replied, still in shock. With Mom's words, the reality that Mary wasn't lying about her pregnancy hit me. It seemed like Mary had managed to take something precious from me again. Oddly, despite everything, I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching someone else's life fall apart. I didn't feel anger, just a deep emptiness. Before I knew it, tears began to flow, and overwhelming frustration consumed me. Mom hugged me tightly, trying to console me. Riley, it's okay. It's going to be okay. All right. Don't cry. Mom, just rest for now. We'll talk about everything properly later. For the next few days, I stayed somewhere else with Mom. The thought of returning to the family home with Mary or the apartment I shared with Thomas was unbearable. A few days later, I started to feel better, and my emotions began to stabilize. Upon telling this to Mom, she decided it was time to sit down and talk with Mary and Thomas at our family home. Seeing Thomas after such a long time, he looked worn out and pale. In contrast, Mary seemed smug and triumphant. I decided to first ask Thomas about his feelings. So, what's the plan now? Well, that is, it's quite something getting your fiancé's sister pregnant. I'm too stunned to even blame you. I'm sorry, but I love Mary. I can't marry you, Riley. I knew this was coming, but hearing Thomas's decision still stung. Sensing my emotions, Mary had a mocking grin on her face. Trying to hold back my irritation, I confronted her. What do you want, Mary? Well, isn't it obvious? I want to marry Thomas for our baby's sake. You're serious. You do know he was my fiancé, right? So even after all this, you still want to marry Thomas? That's perhaps because Thomas chose her, Mary said with certainty as if she had no competition left. Her apologetic face at the wedding venue was nowhere to be seen, replaced with a hateful smirk. Talking further felt like a waste of time. Feeling resolved, I realized it was time to move on from both of them. I took a deep breath to end the conversation, but Dad, who had been listening, spoke up. Riley, you understand, right? Dad, what are you talking about now? You've always been told to give way to your younger sister, haven't you? What's your point? Hand over Thomas to Mary. To begin with, there's a reason he cheated on you. In that instant, something inside me snapped. All this time, I've been told to give in to my younger sister because she's younger. This is so unjust. I won't put up with it any longer. I'll get my revenge. I plan to demand compensation from Mary and Thomas and get a restraining order against Dad for past abuse. But before I could act, Mom stepped forward. She stood before Mary and smiled gently. Mary, first off, congratulations on your pregnancy. Thanks, Mom. This will be your first grandchild. Grandchild? Don't make me laugh. You're no longer my daughter. What? Mom, what are you saying? How could you stoop so low as to steal your sister's fiancé and get pregnant by him? You're no better than a monster. Hearing the stern tone from Mom, a side she'd never seen before, Mary shrank back in fear. Dad, concerned about Mary, stepped in to intervene. Hey, what's gotten into you? This is hard on Mary. Hard on her. At that moment, Mom stood directly in front of Dad, gripping his shirt tightly. Enough is enough. What on earth are you talking about? How can you say it's hard on Mary? Don't you see how Riley is the one truly suffering here? Calm down. Mary isn't the only one at fault here. Riley played her part in this too. Dad kept trying to defend Mary, but Mom had had enough. She released her grip and said, no more excuses. Riley deserves better than this, and it's time we support her, not coddle Mary. I don't ever want to see Mary again, and we're getting a divorce. What? Yes, a divorce. Why would I stay in a family with someone so heartless? If you understand, then please leave. But, am I joking? Absolutely not. Can't you see how much you've hurt Riley? And if you ever try to harm my precious daughter again, even if you're family, I won't hesitate to take you down. Got it? Mom's forceful words turned Dad's face pale, and for good reason. If he were kicked out, he'd have nowhere to go because the house, passed down from Mom's grandparents, was in her name. Dad had married into the family of wealthy landowners, but after the grandparents passed, he became more dominant, disregarding Mom's opinions. He always said, I am the one supporting this family, probably getting too arrogant after their passing and completely forgetting one crucial detail. The house was inherited from the grandparents and was under Mom's name. Realizing the predicament he was in, Dad knelt before Mom, repeatedly apologizing. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I won't side with Mary again. Just don't kick me out. But Mom was resolute. She began packing Dad's belongings. Once packed, she threw his stuff outside. Here, sign the divorce papers and leave. I don't ever want to see your face again. But, move it or I'll take this to court. Startled by the word court, Dad hurriedly began signing the divorce papers. He then loaded his numerous belongings into the car and left the house. Left behind in the room were Mary and my ex-fiancé Thomas. Thomas looked overwhelmed by Mom and was trembling. How pathetic. Why did I ever consider marrying such a person? On the other hand, Mary still had a smidge of arrogance left. I said to her very clearly, you know I'll be expecting full compensation from you. Compensation? We're sisters. Excuse me, think that matters now? You stole my fiancé, that's a fact. But I don't even have a job. Instead of apologizing, Mary was still trying to justify her actions. Seeing such a pitiful sight, I was utterly disgusted. Finally, I let loose, expressing all the resentment I'd been holding in. Stop making excuses. Whether you work or not, I don't care. Who's to blame for all of this? It's a result of your shameless affair. And after all the trouble you've caused, you still act so self-righteous. Wait, please, I apologize. Just please no compensation. Sorry, you think I'm a fool who would forgive such a shallow apology. I've put up with your crap for years, but enough is enough. Being related to someone like you is just embarrassing. Got it? I won't show any mercy, no matter how much you cry or beg. I'll come after you with everything I've got. Mary broke down, begging and pleading, but forgiveness wasn't an option. Like Dad, Mom packed up Mary's stuff and threw it outside. When Mary and Thomas were reluctant to leave, Mom and I forcibly evicted them. After that, Mom and Dad divorced. My engagement with Thomas was called off. I hired a lawyer and demanded compensation from Mary and Thomas. For Thomas, I required that he cover all the wedding expenses. Mary went into debt, and Thomas exhausted all his savings to pay the compensation. But word of Thomas's affair spread throughout his company, as colleagues were present at the ceremony. Consequently, he was shunned, and, unable to bear the humiliation, he resigned. I wonder what kind of life awaits the unemployed couple, especially with a baby on the way. I don't wish ill on others, but in their case, I hope they face endless misfortunes. As for me, I moved out of the apartment I shared with Thomas and began to live with Mom. Spending time with her has been enriching. Surprisingly, I feel refreshed despite the recent breakup, all thanks to Mom, who fiercely protected me. Will I ever love someone again? If I do find someone in the future, I hope it's someone who can make Mom proud.